teach that a fetus sees everything. From one end of the world to the next. Ask the Santa Rebbe, where is this incredible vision? Once we're born, we don't have this. The vision disappears. So everybody knows that when a child is born, a malach strikes him on his mouth and he forgets his Torah. He explains to Santa Rebbe that since his Torah has disappeared, so his vision has disappeared as well. Because there's no vision without Torah. Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Beis, says, "Have a shakud lilmoid Torah." A person needs to be completely absorbed in learning Torah. The Avodah Yisrael points out the word have, hey, vav, yud, is 21 in Gematria. And it corresponds to the 21 days of the 3 weeks, starting with Shavas Haba Tammuz and ending today. Choyze Milublin explains that the Chum fell upon us because we weren't studying Torah enough. So explains the Avodah Yisrael, Have, for 21 days, Shokud Lilmod Torah, a person needs to be completely absorbed in learning Torah. Because during the 3 weeks, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is distraught. HaKadosh Baruch Hu finds no menucha. What can we do? Nothing makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu happier than when Klal Yisrael sit and learn Torah. Barony Bells explains that that's the reason why in the 9 days when somebody makes a siyum, when they finish a tractate, it's permissible for the people there to eat meat and to drink wine. Why? He explains. Because when a Jew learns Torah, there's no golus. When a Jew learns Torah, there's no 9 days. When a Jew learns Torah, there's no mourning. We read today, Yirmiyahu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Alma of the Oretz. From what was the land lost? How did we lose this precious land of ours? Vayoma Hashem, Al Ozom is Toyosi. Because you gave away my Torah, you didn't stay together with my Torah, you left. Explains Rabbi Bells that when a person studies Torah, when a person finishes a Masechta, he's fixing the root cause of the Chum. Then he adds a beautiful phrase. He says that the smell of the Geula is in the air. So everyone can partake of the Suda when a person makes a seal, when a person finishes a tractate. He doesn't just finish the words inside of the Gemara, but the smell of the Geula comes down into this world as well. There's a very famous Chazal. Haman puts into place his plan to destroy the Jewish nation. And he goes looking for Mordechai. And he finds Mordechai teaching his Talmidim. What were they learning? They should have been learning all the halachas of dying al Kiddush Hashem. What the correct bracha is. When to say it, how to say it. What does he do? Haman finds Mordechai teaching his Talmidim about the Korban Mincha. how to bring a meal offering to the temple. To bring a korban mincha to the Beis HaMikdash. Klal Yisrael are standing on the edge of annihilation. A genocide is about to take place. And they're learning about how to bring a korban to the Beis HaMikdash. What Beis HaMikdash? In those days, the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. A non-existent Beis HaMikdash. They're in Shushan. Haman is in charge. He's going to destroy all the Jews. And they're learning about a korban mincha. Common sense would dictate that there's never going to be another Beis HaMikdash. And yet, Mordechais is teaching the halachas of a korban mincha. Ask the Vishnitzer Rebbe, what's going on? And why is Haman so completely shaken when he sees that that's what Klal Yisrael is doing? Because finally and absolutely Haman understands that he'll never succeed. When you're dealing with a nation who even in such dire straits have optimism and they have faith and they believe and they build for a seemingly non-existent future, such a nation can't be defeated. Kiviyochel, Haman is saying that your little comets of mincha, your little korban that you're going to bring, that little piece of flour that you're going to bring to the Beis HaMikdash is going to destroy all of my plans. And explains the Vishnitzer Rebbe that this is one of the most preeminent lessons of Jewish history. That no matter how bleak the situation may seem, a Jew never gives up hope. But we have to want to do it. We have to want to be connected to Hashem. The Navi Yeshaya quotes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'lo yiti karasi Yaakov, ki yigata b'nei Yisrael. You weren't calling me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you feel that it's a strain, if you feel that it's a toil, then you're not calling me. What's the pshat? Pshat is very simple. Avodas Hashem should be a pleasure to do. Avodas Hashem should be something that we want to do. If someone feels that keeping the Torah is a load on their shoulders, that it's pushing them down, then that's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah that he's carrying. That's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs that he's performing. That's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu intended for us. There's a very famous mashal from the Dubna Magid. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. I'm going to tell it over anyway. Somebody once delivered a package to somebody else, a very heavy package, and he's schlepping up the stairs and he's huffing and he's puffing and he's sweating. And he knocks on the door, and the owner of the door, or the owner of the house opens the door, and he takes one look and he says, "It's not my package." So the fellow looks at him, the porter looks at him, he says to him, "I don't understand, you didn't even look inside, how do you know that it's not yours?" Says the owner of the house, he says, "Because the package that I'm waiting for is lightweight. I see you breathing heavily, I see you sweating over here, you're struggling. That's not my package." Says the Dubna Magid, the Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, the mitzvahs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, they're not there to weigh us down. They're not there to make our lives difficult. They're not there so that we'll have to sweat and toil. They're there for us to enjoy. They're there for us to connect together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu with. Agon, Rav Gershon Edelstein Shlita, explains like this. He says if a child is forced to do things, all he sees is parents who don't care about what he wants. They look at him as being like a puppet, has to obey orders. And if he feels that his parents don't care about what he wants, that causes him not to care about what they want. Kaddish Baruch Hu is not forcing himself upon us. Kaddish Baruch Hu is not forcing us and not listening to us. Kaddish Baruch Hu is giving us everything that we need, but we have to recognize that. The Sefer Be'er Yosef, from Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Salant, he cites the Medrash Rabbah, which talks about the word Vayikra. In Sefer Vayikra, the first word, the Aleph, is written small. It's all different kinds of Perushim, but the Medrash says that the Aleph is written small in order to come and teach us how precious small children are in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rav Yosef Tzvi Salant explains, the Aleph comes from the word Alefcho, which means I will teach you. It's a word in Eov. We have to teach our children, we have to teach the next generation to love mitzvahs. We have to teach the next generation to love Torah. There's only one way to teach them that. And that's by us loving Torah and by us loving mitzvahs. And by that the children will see just how precious it really is. Chazal explain that in the time of the Golus, in the time of the exile, in the time of Chorban Bayis Rishon, when the Sanhedrin went into Golus, the Shekhinah didn't go with them. When the Mishmoros went into Golus, the Kohanim, the Shekhinah didn't go with them. But when the children went into Golus, the Shekhinah went into Golus together with them. Says the Pasuk in Eicha, Olalea olchu shevi lifnei tsar. Her young children went into captivity before the enemy. V'yotzo mibas Tzion kol Hedorah. That the whole of Tzion lost its splendor. Explain Chazal. That loss of splendor was the Shekhinah going into Golus together with the children. The Shekhinah's presence is dependent upon Tinoku Shel Beis Rabban. The divine presence is dependent upon the purity of children learning Torah. The schus of Torah emanating from the pure mouths of those small children protects Klal Yisrael. The Medrash says that before HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give the Torah to Klal Yisrael, he asked for a guarantor. The Medrash says that Klal Yisrael said the Avos, they'll guarantee that we'll keep the Torah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said no. And then they said, Shamayim v'Oretz will be the guarantors, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said no. And then they said our children will be the guarantors. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it's a deal. Tinoikos shel beis Rabban. I was once zoiche to be in a bar mitzvah many, many years ago. Very close friend, his eldest son became bar mitzvah. And the grandfather of the bar mitzvah boy spoke. I remember it was, 30 years ago, over here in Zvil. And the grandfather told over about his bar mitzvah that he had in the Warsaw Ghetto. In the middle of the Holocaust. And he said that his father, the Mesiras Nefesh, went out to find him tefillin. Tefillin shel yad from one place, tefillin shel rosh from another place. And there in the ghetto, he put on his tefillin for the first time in his bar mitzvah. And they knew what was going on at that point. They knew that the Jews were being massacred, that they were being killed. And he said everyone was convinced that this was the last bar mitzvah in history. This young child is going to have the last bar mitzvah because there'll be no Jews left. And his grandfather looked around the room here in Yerushalayim, decades later, and he said, "It's not human. It's not to be believed." The Torah of Tinoikos shel beis Rabban, the Torah of the purity of these children, keeps Klal Yisrael afloat. But we need to know that it's up to us to instill in our children the desire to be Ovdei Hashem. I tell my Talmidim and Talmidas all the time, when you're trying to give over something, if you're not passionate about it yourself, don't expect anyone else to be passionate about it. If parents are not passionate about their Yiddishkeit, then maybe they shouldn't have too many expectations from their children either. Says the Pasuk, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. There's a very famous Tosfos, Bava Basra, Daf Chof Aleph. Tosfos asks, what's so special about Tzion? Tzion is Yerushalayim. What's so special about Tzion that it says Ki mitzion teitzei Torah? Why from Yerushalayim? Why not from any other place? Tosfos answers, it's not the city of Yerushalayim that inspired. But when the people would come to Yerushalayim, and they would come to the Beis HaMikdash, and they would see the Kohanim doing their avodah, it would inspire them in Yiras Shamayim. It would inspire them in Limud HaTorah. It would inspire them in Kiyum HaMitzvahs. That's what it means when it says Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. There is no Beis HaMikdash today. There is no Avodas HaKohanim today. Which means it is up to us to inspire those around us to recognize and to feel Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. With all of our flaws, we have to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we've been put into this world. Tell over a Maisa. Once, there was a water carrier who would bring water from the river to his master's estate every day, backwards and forwards. He had 2 big pails, a rod between the two, and he would hang the rod over his neck, and they would hang down from rope, and that's how he would schlep backwards and forwards. The problem was that one pail was cracked. And for 2 years, he went backwards and forwards to bring the water, but by the time he got to his master's mansion, there was only 1.5 pails of water left, because a crack in the other one was dripping out the whole way. After 2 years of bitter disappointment, the cracked pail confesses to the water carrier, and he says to him, I'm ashamed and I want to apologize. And the water carrier says to the pail, he says, what are you ashamed about? So he explains, for the last 2 years, cried the pail, I could only carry half as much water because of the crack in my side. Water that you filled me up the whole way, and it leaked out on the way to your master's home. My defect, my flaw, means that you do all the work without a full return. The porter felt sorry for his old cracked pail. And he told him, he says, on the way to the estate, just look at the flowers that are growing along the path. And as they mounted the hill on the way back to the mansion, the cracked pail noticed the sun warming the magnificent flowers over there. And though he was cheered up by the sight, never again, the pail was despondent, because at the end of the path, as always, half of the water had dripped out of the pail. So once more, he apologized to the water carrier. And the water carrier says to him, didn't you see those flowers that were growing just on your side of the path? I planted their seeds only there so that you could water them every day. For the last 2 years, you've been watering those flowers, and as they grow and as they bloom, I've picked them and I brought them into the home of my master in order to make it more beautiful. Without you being as you are, he could never enjoy all of that beauty. Each of us have flaws. It's our flaws which make life challenging. And it's our flaws which make life worthwhile. I once got an email from somebody, the signature line on the bottom was, if you think you're perfect, then you're finished. Tate mashma. A person who thinks that he's perfect is not going to work on himself. A person who thinks that he's perfect is not going to try to overcome the challenges that are sent his way, because he doesn't need to. We all contain so much potential. And our defects have a way of becoming a beneficial force. Baron Kotler, Mishnah Sot Aroni, writes that each person, man, woman, and child, needs to look at themselves as being a living Beis HaMikdash. Just as the Kohanim inspired others and embodied the essence of the Beis HaMikdash, so should we inspire others and embody the essence of the Beis HaMikdash. Us, flawed us. We each and every one of us are Beis HaMikdash. We each and every one of us a source of potential inspiration for all those around us. We have to learn how to utilize that, how to show others around us. Yirmiyahu Hanavi says, in the first Haftorah of the 3 weeks, Vayihi devar Hashem elai, the word of Hashem was upon me. Lemor, and it said, Ma taroi Yirmiyahu, what do you see? Va'omer, and I answered, Makel shaked ani roeh, an almond branch. Vayomer, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Hitavta lerois ki shokud oni al divrei la'asoisoi. You've seen well, because I am intent, shoked, upon my plan to perform it. And this is a beginning of Yirmiyahu being chosen to be the Navi that's going to come to warn Klal Yisrael of the impending Chum, and ultimately the Navi who mourns together with Klal Yisrael because of the Chum. What's Pshat? How do we understand? Yirmiyahu saw an almond branch, and somehow or other that reflects the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Yerushalmi in Tainis answers that an almond flower develops into a nut over the course of just 21 days. And they correspond to the 21 days of Bein HaMetzarim, of the 3 weeks. And according to Yerushalmi, the almond branch was chosen by Kaddish Baruch Hu as a sign for the impending Galus. It will happen quickly. We need to be careful. We need to do something about it whilst we still can. That's a simple pshat. But there's more. One Reuven says that almonds at a certain stage in their growth are so bitter they can't be eaten. And if you pick almonds at that moment, the only way that you can eat them is by roasting them. Put them in the fire. That will make them edible. The Balei HaMusar explain that the almond is coming to teach in the Nevuah of Yirmiyahu. The almond is coming to teach us that the unbearable bitterness of Golus can be sweetened and made palatable through Limud Torah, through learning Torah, because Torah is compared to fire. Yirmiyahu says, Haloi koi divrei ke'esh, Ne'um Hashem. My words are like fire, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way to sweeten the bitterness is through the fire of Limud Torah. It's 3 weeks, it's Tisha B'Av, it's truly awful. Rav Pincus explains the Jewish year, the 3 weeks are followed by 7 weeks of consolation. 3 is foundation, a chazaka. 7 is structure. The 6 sides of a box and the inner dimension, the 7th dimension, the point where it all meets in the center, where the spirituality exists. The 7 weeks after Tisha B'Av are called Shevet Nechemta. 7 weeks of consolation that can only exist after the 3 weeks and after Tisha B'Av. And explains Rav Dessler, the Shevet and Nechemta themselves are also a bridge between the 3 weeks and Elul and Tshuva. And he says, the tragedy brings mourning. Morning sparks yearning. Yearning leads to hope. Hope spurs thoughts of tshuva, and tshuva results in a reconciliation and a reconnection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. After a whole morning of kinus, a whole morning of one terrible kinner after the other, we reach the end and we stand up and we sing the beautifully poignant Eli Tzion. Had a haunting melody to it. But if you read the words, they don't seem to fit. Eli Tzion, Varea, Kamo Isha B'Tzarea. We wail Tzion and the cities like a woman suffering from the travails of birth. What's Pshat? The Pshat is very simple. Even the Golus is sweet if it brings us closer to the sweetness of the Geula. That's why these times that we live in right now are called Chevlei Moshiach, the birth pangs of the Mashiach. There's nothing more painful. But at the end, there'll be life. Those intense contractions, that intense pain, that's how new life will be brought into the world. To taste the sweetness of learning Torah, Torah that will allow us to go together to greet the Mashiach just down the road. And may we experience the sublime and absolute sweetness of the Geula. B'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Amen.